all of it.
Great. Okay, perfect. Farm like the world depends on it, which I'm sure we all think about and do on a regular basis. And it's a great tagline. And yeah, that's our tagline at the Regenerative Organic Alliance. And we launched the seal that you see on our screen here, Regenerative Organic Certified, in 2017, 2018. Dr. Bronner's, Patagonia, and the Rodeo Institute came together and talked about how they could continue to support organic, which was very much a part of their DNA and the work that Rodeo had been doing and what Patagonia and Bronner's had been purchasing for a long time. They wanted to keep organic strong, but they wanted to go further. They wanted to really ensure that they were building soil health and that there was really good animal welfare protocols in place and humane treatment of animals. And they also wanted to add in an often overlooked element about fairness for the farm workers and fairness for the farmers. And they set out to, they released this new standard, Regenerative Organic Certified. There was a lot of feedback, a lot of participation, about 400 public comments that came in, and they realized they were onto something, and they brought in NSF International to help them oversee a pilot program. And that's when they hired me in 2018. And we did a global pilot program. And we did this across 8 countries around the world. And we did it about 20 different farms and looked at how that framework that they had created initially was working on the ground, and got a lot of feedback from that process and did further revisions. And then we opened up for business in right about end of about October 2020. So you can imagine we're in the middle of a global pandemic. We weren't really able to get out a whole lot until a little bit later, around 2021, we kind of soft launched. And then in 2022, we really started getting out and doing a lot more audits. And I'll tell you all about it here. I just want to start with the framework, which comes from J.I. Rodale. The Rodale Institute was very deeply involved in the creation of the standard. Jeff Moyer was on the founding board and the chair of our board, and a great contributor in the thinking around how we developed the standard, along with many of the other scientists at Rodale Institute. And really what it all comes down to, J.I. Rodale wrote in 1942 that healthy soil equals healthy food equals healthy people. And we're seeing this over and over again now as we see more and more evidence coming to bear to show that food grown in healthy soil and animals that are eating forage on healthy ground are creating more nutrient-dense meat and milk. And there's a lot more evidence gathering to show that. You know, I think this is not new to any of you, why we need regenerative organic now, and that industrial agriculture accounts for a large portion of our global carbon emissions. A lot of this coming from industrial kind of livestock operations and conversion of land to more conventional agriculture, using a lot of these kind of synthetic pesticides and synthetic fertilizers, and just looking at all the damage that is being done to the planet because of this kind of chemically based extractive agriculture, when it really could be something that is very healing and creates healthy soil that sequesters carbon and grows healthy food and healthy people. This program that we have is really, it's based on 3 levels, and the idea is that we've got this entry level. You come in, the farmers come in at bronze and they work their way up to gold. And it's kind of building in criteria and a process to help ensure there's continuous improvement. And it's not just flat, you arrive somewhere and then you just stay at that same level all the time. And there's a lot of kind of criticism of organic, that it's kind of a floor and a ceiling. And so this idea here is to help it build and continue to improve. There's 3 pillars, as I mentioned, we look through, is this healthy soil and animals and humans. And in each of our pillars, there are certain criteria that I think we all will agree on in the regenerative sector around, you know, there's this big focus on the health of the soil, improving soil organic matter and the soil biology, and You do that in certain ways of minimizing your soil disturbance and keeping the soil covered and bringing in more diversity, in having more proactive crop rotations, and integrating livestock is really key, as science is showing us. And you bring animals to the farm, it builds the health of the soil a lot faster than when you don't have animals on the farm. Our program also does not allow for any hydroponics or soilless systems, and has a more strict interpretation of synthetic inputs than the organic program. We uphold the Xerces list, and that's to prevent damage to other pollinators and insects and the biodiversity that farms depend on. That middle pillar here is probably of most interest, of course, to livestock producers. And so this one is around the animal welfare, kind of those core 5 freedoms that are listed here on the pillar around this. I think at the heart of it all is that freedom to express normal behavior. And so for ruminants, that means that they're out on grass as much as possible. Our systems really focus on being grass-fed, pasture-raised, no CAFOs unless an operation can justify utilization, full utilization of their pasture. And then there are certain exemptions that we allow. There are other tenets there in those 5 freedoms that cause some real pain points and challenges in, in some of the livestock sectors we work with, whether it's with ruminants and, like there's a number of modifications that need to happen at a certain age or to be done in a way that is going to minimize pain and suffering for the species. Same with poultry and with pork. I won't get into all those details though. That social fairness pillar there on that last section is really about trying to ensure that workers are being treated fairly and that they're earning, if not a living wage, at least that there's transparency about what a living wage would be for that region, and that the owners are trying to get to this point of paying a living wage. And if they provide housing and food, then those things are allowed to contribute towards calculating that living wage. We also have other sections of our social fairness pillar that require any brands who are purchasing from the farmers are signing long-term contracts, and they're paying premiums to those farmers, and also that they're ensuring good working conditions, and there's no child labor and there's no trafficked labor, and some of those core tenets of social fairness program. It's a little challenging to administer this in the US because we don't really have a lot of programs that do that. You find it a lot more common in countries in the global south, where you're going to have these kind of really egregious violations of child labor and trafficked labor, but it's still present here. Certainly because a lot of our farm workers are undocumented individuals, and so they are kind of in the shadows and they don't have the protections of the law. And so that has been a really challenging area for us, but we're learning and growing with our program and learning and growing with the industry and providing education for the certifiers who do our inspections for us and training their auditors so that they can do a really good social fairness audit. And I won't get too much in the weeds on that. I just wanted to give you kind of an idea of the annual cycle for a regenerative organic certified farm. We are a scheme owner. So basically we own the certification standard, and we onboard certifiers to do the audits for us, and they make the certification decision. They give it back to us. We review it and accept it or push back with the certifier if there's something else that needs to be kind of managed with those farmers. But the certifiers have the direct relationship with the farmers, and they go through an annual audit. So there's the idea is that we only work with NOP accredited certifiers because organic is a baseline for our program. So the idea would be that they can bundle the audit. And when they're out there having an organic audit, then the same auditors and the same certifier would add on the regenerative organic certified audit. So yeah, the certifiers make the audit, they make the decision, they give it to us, and then we issue the certificate and we issue the license to the brand. And the model is such that we charge the brands a license fee, and we have a flat rate for our farmers. So it's $250 for most farmers for the year. And if they're under $1 million in sales, and it's $500 if it's over $1 million in sales. The farmers do have to pay for the audits, and that is handled with the certifier, not with us. And let's see, here's where we are today. So we are growing pretty rapidly. You can see we're at over 15 million acres. We have over 60,000 farms and smallholders. So one farm in India might represent 800 farmers or 1,000 farmers. So that number may appear a bit deceptive, but it's just because we include the smallholders in that. Almost 150 different types of crops. And actually, this is a little out of date. We're probably up to 200 brands now licensed to use the regenerative organic certified claim in the marketplace. And we did earn our trademark. With the U.S. Principal Trademark Office granted us a trademark for that phrase, for the claim, and for the logo here, down here on the left. And so that means it's recognized and protected in the US, the EU, Canada, UK, and Japan, and will soon be in many other countries as well. The SPINS data might be interesting more for like market purposes, but we've had 25% increase in sales last year, and we're at about $40 million in revenue. Last time I checked, and it's we're due for an update on that. The SPINS, they collect market data, and they've been really excited about what they were seeing because they've seen so much growth, and so they have been offering us their data for free, which is really nice because otherwise you have to pay for it. This slide is a little text heavy, but just to show like there's a lot going on in the regenerative movement right now. There's 5 new regenerative certifications, and there's no legal definition, although you all may be aware that the CDFA has convened a working group to define regenerative. In fact, I was on that working group, and we just had our last working session, and there's a definition that is being shared right now on the CDFA website. There's one more listening session for the public to come and attend. And so the state of California will be the first really to set out to define it, but it's very specifically designed to affect state programs and policies. It's not because the state wants to do a marketing or certification program. So basically, there's no legal definition for regenerative, and it means it's the Wild West, and anybody can call anything regenerative. And it can be using Roundup to terminate a cover crop and still call it regenerative because the farmer used a cover crop. So that is a problem for us from our view, and we really want to see regenerative be something that isn't relying on synthetic chemicals and pesticides. There's usually agreed upon methods for protecting and building soil health and for sequestering carbon, and a lot of these kind of criteria you see on the left. Most regenerative standards don't include anything for the farmers or the farm workers, and so I think that's worth mentioning and pointing out. Compared to USDA organic, you can see there, prohibits most synthetic chemicals, prohibits GMOs and antibiotics, but there is not that much enforcement of best soil health practices, especially if you consider that you can be a soilless operation and still be organic. You all may be aware of the limited rules around animal welfare, although that's improving somewhat, and then nothing for farm worker fairness. And then the ROC program is there on the right, which I already went through, so I won't make you go through that again. And yeah, this is also an example of kind of where we are in the market, what's happening, and you can see Carrie's going to be talking about her program. That's still increasing a lot. Pasture raised is still increasing a lot. The animal welfare is still having a lot of strong growth. And so consumers are really pushing towards that. Consumers are caring a lot more about animal welfare, pasture raised, and regenerative, and perhaps a dip in some of those other programs on the right, the Plant-Based Food Association, for example. So yeah, just a comparison from spins of what was happening by the end of last year. So we're due for an update on this, but I think still some pretty compelling information about where the market is headed and where consumers are kind of putting their resources and their interest. And that's it. So I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm going to turn this off so I can see you all. And there you have it.
Fascinating. Thank you.
I
Oh,
have a question. Oh, so does Patrick.
Go ahead.
Okay, so you were mentioning moving from bronze to gold with this idea of being able to improve over time. Is there a certain expectation or metric about the rate of improvement that you move between the tiers?
Yeah, there are certain criteria that require, like, for example, if you have a crop rotation at bronze, is that you have 3 crops before you go back to the cash crop, or 2. And then the third one is your cash crop again. At silver, it's 4 or 5, and at gold, it's 7. So those criteria differ and the levels differ. There's also an expectation where at bronze, you can only have 10% of your operation can be in the ROC program. But then within a few years, you need to be adding on more land and moving more regenerative so that in 5 years, you're at 50%. And then there's different criteria throughout all 3 pillars for those different levels. And it's all available on our website at regenorganic.org. Does that answer your question?
It did, yes. Thank you.
Patrick.
Yeah, that was a lot of great information. Thank you for that. I apologize if I missed it in there. Where are some of your focal areas, or your the largest number of producers that you're certifying, and where does California fit into that?
We have a map that I could pull up if you'd like.
That'd be great.
Yeah, let me.
As a geographer, I'm always in support of pulling a map up.
Nice. Well, I'm not super proud of our map. It's a little clunky. It comes out of our database, which is really complex. So it's a lot of data to get into, a lot of data points to get into the map. And we are a nonprofit, so we don't have a ton of funding, and so we've had a wonderful guy helping us develop our website. He's been amazing. I'm sure if we had a lot of funding, we could do a way better job of it. That's all. Let me find my shares. There it is. Okay, so you should be able to see my screen. And
yep.
So this is Find Rock, and there's our certified farm and ranch directory. And then here you see all these little dots are going to show you where the farms are. And so, we've got a lot going on in India. In certain sectors, we have more. We've got a lot of growth happening around in Europe right now, and then in South America and in Australia. A lot of cattle and sheep in Australia, in Africa, coconut, cacao. Those are the main ones there. But yeah, you can also look, you can search for certain crops in here.
So I see that there's quite a few in California, it looks like. Yeah. Do you have a sense of what those are? Are there meat producers in there? Is that mostly produce? Do you know offhand?
Yeah, let's see. So we have wine grapes, produce, some limited dairy. We have some dairy in Pennsylvania, and then some here, some laying hen operations, and specialty crops, primarily almonds also are in there. You can also look at our brand and product directory, and that's
but open to meat production in California.
Yeah, we don't have a lot in California of I'm not sure. We have a lot in Australia, and we have
but you would be open to it in California.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Just making sure. Making sure.
We would love it. I worked in organics for most of my career, and I ran that livestock program at CCOF for many years and spent a lot of time with livestock producers, and I understand it's a huge lift and organic. I feel like a lot of producers have kind of moved away from organic with all the record keeping and the feed, especially if they're grass-based. So, you know, I don't know how many producers we might have here in California who would be interested in this, but they have to be organic first and then add the ROC. And so, you know, it's not easy. Pretty high level commitment. We have, oops, this is not doing the farmers. We have a lot of, like right now, we have a whole cluster up in Canada of pastured pork producers that I think are coming into the program. We have a potential large cluster of broilers coming in California. So there's like certain groups that are, they seem to come in as a group more than single, like a, you know, one cattle rancher or something.
Yeah, got it.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Why this isn't working. Anyone else questions? Yeah, something's going on with this. Oh, here.
I have
There
a
we
quick
go.
question. I noticed that there was a big jump in sales in 2022. Do you know why that was?
Well, that's when we finally were able to get on the market. We, you know, we really weren't in the marketplace because of COVID. We weren't able to get out and do a lot of audits. We couldn't start our first year, but like a lot of the industry moved to remote audits during COVID. And I had to make that decision, like as a brand new certification, the last thing I thought we should do was do remote audits. So we just held on for another, almost a whole year before we were really able to get out. And so that's when we started really hitting the ground running and getting into some of these regions and doing those audits. So yeah, it took a little bit of time.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Kathy has a question.
Hi, Kathy.
Yeah. Hi. So you said that the producer has to be organic. A lot of the ranchers will do their land organic and may not do the meat just because of access to processing and
Yeah,
whether the processor is organic, etc. Does that count?
Well,
Or do
interesting. Yeah, I mean, I could almost see, like, it's something I've been toying with on, you know, a lot of the fashion industry, a lot of big companies are looking to source leather or hides more from regenerative operations. And so because of the tanning process with leather, you can't really get that organic. So therefore it can't be regenerative organic. So we've been in discussions about, well, can you have a claim that says these boots are made from regenerative organic certified cattle? And so I could see almost applying the same thinking to like these cattle graze on regenerative organic certified land. These are cattle grazing on rock land, but the cattle wouldn't be eligible for the regenerative organic certified claim without organic. So it would only be like something that the ranch would be able to promote as far as like having regenerative organic certified land, which I don't think would be a bad thing. It's just that you don't get to carry that market claim to the shelf. But if you have a direct to consumer relationship, then maybe that would be really good story to tell and good engaging kind of pathway for people who visit the farm.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. I think we're right at time and in time for Carrie to go for 25 minutes. So if anyone has questions, feel free to email me, Elizabeth at regenorganic.org. It's really easy to get started. You just go to our Get Started tab and here under Ag Producers, steps to becoming certified. And then this is the framework that kind of guides everything. And then here's additional guidance documents. We've evolved our standard over time. When we get a lot of feedback, we take it to our committees and we're like, hey, you know, these quinoa growers in Bolivia can't do a crop rotation. What can we do for them? How can we help them meet? Like, how can we apply regenerative principles in this place? Because regenerative is as unique as the place in which that farm is operating. So we have guidances and so forth, but everything else is right here. And we're happy to help you. I got a wonderful team of people who are there ready to help and answer any questions.
Excellent.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Of course, yeah, I'm glad to be here. Thank you for all that you all do.
And next is Carrie.
Hey, here I am.
There you are.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Let's see if I can find. I'm in the wrong screen. Let me. Had everything pulled up earlier. iPhone posted to me. That's not what I.
If you want, I can share. I have your presentation. I can share it if you'd like.
Yeah, would you mind doing the PowerPoint for me, and then we can have the other documents?
Yeah, no worries. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Can you all see my screen? I'm going to switch it to
There we are.
slideshow.
Thank you.
Is that good enough?
That's perfect. This is a pretty in-depth slideshow about our certification process. American Grassfed started in 2003 when the USDA said that they were going to allow grass-fed label plant that could be fed 20% grain confined and fed antibiotics and hormones. And so we met with the USDA in 2003, and we worked with them until 2007 to say we don't think that's good enough. And the USDA finally came back and said we're going to only concentrate on what the animal eats, not where it eats or how it's been raised. So we asked if we could do our own program, and they said absolutely, as long as your standards meet or exceed ours. And that was a big leap. So this is our process. Let's see. Let's see. Let's go down. Just kind of click through doors. I'm not able to notice there. Okay, you can keep clicking. Thank you. We'll just click through these really quickly and just next. All right. This is it's the only producer one, and we're USA only, by the way. We're only focusing on producers who are in the United States. So we don't certify anybody outside the United States. So I'm just giving you a lot of information here, but it makes it a little easier for us. And we want to support American family farms and farmers. So we're only doing USA. And then you click down to the next one. And third-party on-farm inspections, we do those every 15 months instead of every year. That way you get to see the inspector gets to see the farm. There's different growing times in the growing season. And this is really important. When we started, we were doing it every 12 months, and people were saying, well, you're seeing my farm in November. I'd like for you to be able to see it in May. So we changed that to every 15 months. Next slide, please. And you'll have access to this. This is what our animals are fed a forage diet. They're raised on pasture, no confinement. That doesn't mean that you can't sort and round up your animals for whatever, but it does not mean that you can just put them in a feedlot or in some type of confinement and call it grass-fed under our standards. The animals are never fed antibiotics or synthetic hormones. That's not to say if you have an animal that needs to be treated, that you treat them immediately, but then you take them out of the program. So that's it in a nutshell. We get questions about that all the time, but we were trying to figure out years ago what was how we could define what is routine antibiotic use. So we just said we're just not going to allow it. So just take them out of the program. All right, and then let's see, keep scrolling. There you go. Keep moving. Thank you. This is how it's done. You contact us, you sign up for them on our website. The standards are all on our website. It's all self-taught, and if you need, we have a lot of Amish and Mennonite farmers in our dairy program, and they don't have access to the internet. So we do most of that by mail, and those are through Horizon and Full-On. So, and anyway, so anybody has any questions, then we're here for that. All right. Next one is then once they go through that process, we have inspectors on our website. And the way we do inspections is that we allow the producer to pick their inspector, and they're vetted through us. NRCS agents can do the on-farm inspections if they're willing to do it. Extension agents, veterinarians, as long as they have a practice in the species that they're expecting to. Animal scientists, and we also have several companies for a fee that will do our inspections. Once the inspection is done and the paperwork comes back to us, we review it. And if we have any really issues with it, then it goes back to our standards and certification committee. And it's reviewed there. But the inspector is there not to make value judgments. They're there to do an on-site inspection and to weigh our forms. And if you look at our forms on our website, they're pretty standard. If there's any questions, we want the inspector to note those, but we don't want them making value judgments. So that comes back to our review team, and then back to the office, and then on to the certification committee if there's any question. And then we go back to the producer, and if we have non-compliance, then we issue that paperwork through the office. Right? Any questions so far? How am I doing? Right. The licensing agreement is issued through AGA. It's a one-time fee to use the trademark logo. This is the licensing fee is $150, and then the per head animal fees are listed there. We have just added pastured poultry with in conjunction with the American Pastured Poultry Producers Association, but we're rolling out those standards in that program at our conference, which is in November in Denver. So I didn't put it on here because I didn't want to put the cart before the horse, but that we do have the standards for pastured poultry on our website as well. All right, thank you, Doris. Keep moving. The on-farm inspection process. Yeah, but next, sorry. The on-farm inspection process. Good, black and white. Oh, the next one after that, sorry. Next one after that, sorry. Okay, for many years, we had, our standard was not a welfare standard because there were people who were doing animal welfare that were very good at it and doing a great job. However, over the years, and Kathy's on my certification standards committee, when we started looking at it, and as we moved more into the regenerative based production system, we started adding soil health and other facilities, and we are now rolling out, and it will probably be rolled out in our conference as well. We have a land health module, and that will be rolled out probably at our conference or by the end of the year as well. And it's basically it'll be a separate certification that will be added to your grass-fed certification that will be regenerative. And as soon as that's rolled out, I can send you those documents, but right now they're in progress and process, so I didn't want to put them here. It's basically, Kathy, if you want to weigh in here too about the questions that we're going to ask, it's about soil health and monitoring, and we're doing that in conjunction with Holistic Management International, and they're going to be working with us to make sure that all of that is transparent and auditable, inspected. So that's all in the works right now, but that will be a regenerative certification through AGA. Right, keep going. All right, sorry. I'm going to go wrong. I think that's, is that it? No, there's no more.
Well, do you need me to move on to the next one?
Yes, please, I'm sorry. And this is what we do. Now, the one thing that we do with Grassfed is that we spend a lot of time working with the government. As we say, we started out with the USDA, with Food Safety Inspection Service, to get a meaningful grass-fed label claim. And we had a definition through Agricultural Marketing Services until 2017. And I'm not going to be a conspiracy theorist, but it was about the time that JBS asked for a grass-fed label, and AMS said we no longer have the right to make a definition for grass-fed. So they pulled that. So we've gone back to USDA many times. We did get product of the USA through the Biden's executive order, but then Vilsack gave them until 2026 to implement that. So we're still working on a grass-fed definition. In the meantime, we have defined grass-fed through our standards as far as what it is. And the basic tenets are no confinement, a forage-based diet, no antibiotics or added hormones, and good animal welfare. And like I say, our standards are now addressing animal welfare to some degree. We do not want to step on the toes of anybody that's doing really good poultry welfare only. But we think it's important to have that part of it, and also regenerative with the monitoring and soil health. So we're adding those things. But again, I don't want to roll those out here because it'll be a couple more months before they're ready to be published. I think that's it on this one. And we've got a couple more documents. Anybody got any questions so far? Did you speed listen to my speed talking? I've done this so many times, it's hard to boil it down to make sure I haven't skipped something. Doris, if you wouldn't mind putting up one of those other documents, I'd appreciate it. Thank you. This is how to get in touch with us, and you'll have access to all of these documents. Thank you.
Can you see this next document here?
Isn't it? No, I don't see anything.
Oh, okay. Let me share the proper screen. This one here?
Yeah, this is the certification. This is on our public facing documents. This is what we are. We're putting out there. And again, we're USA only. We have standards for ruminants. We have standards for dairy. We have standards for swine, pork. And we're also just adding poultry. But again, until we get that rolled out, I didn't want to put that in the mix right now. With dairy, as I mentioned earlier, the inspectors can, as the criteria for inspectors to do that. For dairy, because dairy is a completely different animal, the inspector for dairy has to complete an online webinar through IOIA, which is the International Organization of Independent Inspectors. And it's an online course that should take on, but with all the vagaries in dairy, and the majority of our dairies are organic. So they can bundle their organic inspection with the grass-fed. And let's see, producers pay $200 a year for the program dues, a one-time licensing fee, and then they pay a per head fee for anything they've harvested that they've used our logo on. It's $1 for large ruminants. For the heads milked, that's for anybody that's doing on-farm sales. 25 cents for small ruminants, goats and sheep, and then pastured pork is 50 cents. And I believe the poultry program is going to be 1 cent per bird. And then when you get that at the end of the year, you send everything in at the end of the year, regardless of when your inspection is. So that's how all that happens. Pretty much. That's good. Any questions so far? Okay, and one more document, and then I'll just do some talking. Thanks, Doris.
Sure.
I love technology when it works.
Carrie.
While you're pulling that up, Doris, I want to add to Carrie's discussion around adding some standards. We're kind of excited because we're exploring about a low stress livestock add-on to our welfare standards, and we've worked closely with Whit Hebert on what those would look like. So to come.
Yeah. Like I say, these are the basic tenets of our standards. Grass or forage based diet, raised on pasture, no antibiotics or added hormones, family farm origin. They have to be USA only. And you can't bring them. We have some issues with farmers who are just across the border in Mexico are bringing their animals in, and that's a problem. But we had to draw the line somewhere, so that was the line in the sand that we drew. And So they have to be born here, raised here, and harvested here. So it limits us a little bit, but we think it's better for the American family farmers, because we're also working with people to make sure that rural economies stay viable and those kind of things. And those were all really good discussions with people that are on our standard certification committee. And it was a really difficult process, but we've come to agree that that's something that we're adamant about, is that for AGA, American Grassfed. Now, the other thing too is that we started with the other half processing and with the land health module, because some of the leather companies wanted to make sure that they were purchasing hides from animals that had come off of pasture. So we worked with them from the beginning, and that was basically the framework for what we're doing now with the land health module. But for people who want to sell in the OHP, they other have processing with their hide programs, they can use our land health module as it is now. But and then once we add the other parts to it, then they'll also be eligible to be part of that program as well. So that's it. Like I say, I'm not really good on time. I usually, yeah, we're doing pretty well.
You're right on time.
Okay, so anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. The other thing is that we're very price sensitive with our fees, as far as, we don't get involved in paying the inspectors. The paperwork comes back to us, and as I mentioned earlier, we didn't want the inspectors to make value judgments, and we saw that originally with some of the inspectors, and they were making comments about, well, he should be doing it this way or he should be doing it that way. And all we want the inspector to do is to note on the form if there's a question. Then we go back to the producer, and we have a really good review team, and we've set that up to be really transparent. And we think dealing with the producer one-on-one makes it better for everybody around them, and it gives them a chance to interact with us. And we have inspectors that have been doing on farm for years. As Elizabeth mentioned during COVID with the virtual inspections, we did allow virtual inspections, but only if the inspector had been on your farm previously. If it wasn't anybody new, you couldn't do it that way. So we had some people that had to wait until they were allowed on the farm. And then with our dairy programs, we have a program with Horizon and also with Paloma. And then we have some people who are just selling on farm that want to use the AG logo. So we're very proud of the logo, as you can tell, and I've been with the program a long time. So here we are, and thank you for your time. Anybody got any questions? Patrick, that's good, because you usually have a question or two going on our map. Our map is on our website for where the farms are located.
Thank you, Carrie.
Yeah, and I think you had some input into how that map works. So thank you for that. Yeah.
And looking forward to working with you more on growing grass.
Yes. So I'm pleased to be part of this. Thank you so much. And I have to tell you, after attending a couple of the things that you all have had in California, to be invited to those, you all are on the cutting edge of making this change possible. So people are taking notice of it. And as Elizabeth says, there is no definition for regenerative, but there are a lot of people working on that. And I think you all have opened the Pandora's box on that one. And I think we need to hone in on it and make sure that it remains something that we want to see, rather than being corrupted like sustainable and all those other ones are. So
Thanks, Carrie. Will you be able to make our November 18th third event?
yes.
Awesome.
Yeah, I couldn't last. I had a family emergency, but I'll be at the next.
Great.
Ashley had a question.
Yes, I don't mean to back up, but I just had a question in regards to other grass-fed certifying bodies that are doing US and maybe more globally. Is there how do you view that, and are there opportunities to merge? And I don't know, it just seems there's so many certifications out there, especially on the regenerative front, coming behind the grass-fed certifications. So I was just curious to know, Carrie, what your thoughts on that. I know there's a greener world. Is that one of the grass-fed certifiers for dairy specifically, or?
I'm not really sure. I know they have a grass-fed certification, but maybe Elizabeth or somebody else will chime in here, but in order to be grass-fed with a greener world, you also have to pass their or be inspected to their animal welfare standards. And the other thing is that you have to take your animals to a processor that's certified by a greener world. And our reason for not getting into that was because if we have a producer who has a small processor 10 minutes away that's not AGA certified, and they have to go to one that's 100 miles away, and we didn't want to limit the producer to only go to those particular processors. And processing is, as you all know, is a really big group thing that it limits everybody at this point. We're working really hard to have more processing around the country. We're not going to jump borders. We've made that commitment, so I don't know how that would work with these people that do jump borders. And also, some of the other programs allow antibiotics, and we don't allow them at all. We ask that we demand that they take the animals out of our program, because we couldn't figure out how to tell people the animal was sick, we gave it antibiotics, now it's well, now go eat it. And so I understand the reason for it, but and with the withdrawal periods and things, but it just made it, from a consumer point of view, it made it easier for us to say we're not allowed.
A greener world is actually presenting on
Yeah.
in a couple of weeks, so we'll find out a lot more details then.
Like I say, I don't really have time. I mean, I know Elizabeth's program because I work with a lot of people that are part of her program, but I'm anxious to hear from all the different certifiers. So I think this is really important, and we have different voices, and there's not a one size fits all in this realm, in this part. So the one thing is keep those animals on pasture and keep them out of feed yards, that kind of thing. So I think we're trying to do that, and then make the soil and the animals healthy.
Thank you, Carrie.
Thank you.
That's so true, Carrie. I'm curious if you all have looked at the CDFA regenerative definition, because I think that'll be really interesting and have potentially really powerful influence here on a lot of beef producers. And it doesn't require organic, but it has a list of targeted outcomes.
Well,
so, yeah.
I was graciously invited to take a look at it a little while ago, and I haven't looked at it lately, but I think you're off to a great start. And
I think it's pretty good. I think there's a lot to like in there for a lot of people. I don't know how producers will meet all the outcomes. I don't know how the state's going to verify it yet. I think that's still kind of a little tricky business, but
yeah, that's always a sticky wicket for everybody, is that it has to be something that you can inspect to and audit and make it so.
Exactly. Yeah. Or to recognize existing programs, like if they could recognize your program or our program, then those producers who have that would already have a leg up. And I hope they'll do something like that, but I'm not sure where that's going to land.
Yeah. Anyway.
We can't. You said they're just in the process of finalizing the definition, Elizabeth?
Yeah, it's on the website, and there's going to be one more listening session on August 22nd.
Okay.
I can drop it in the chat here if people want to see it. I have it on a document. I'll grab it real quick and drop it in the chat window.
Michael went testified at one point as well.
Yeah, I was there. I saw him. Yeah.
So we've been following it.
Yeah.
I just think you all made the first step out of the box, and I was thrilled what you did. Somebody had to, and all this stuff about regenerative and
yeah. Totally true. I was like, why would you do this? Don't do it. But they were committed. I think it was a really great process. The whole thing was super participatory and inclusive, and after a lot of feedback that there was no Indigenous voice, they went and consulted with the tribes and got. And so it's leading, the first paragraph talks about respecting the traditions and innovation from original Indigenous people of the land. And I was really happy to see how much weight that carried. Let me see, where is the chat? I just saw it. 1 second. And I'll drop
This
it in
is
there.
great. We'll push this out to the whole network because we shared it with this group kind of at the beginning phases, and then a handful of people have been kind of linked in, but this is great timing to, especially since there's one more listening session, we'll make sure that gets back out to the group.
It says my chat is too long, but so I'll break it into 2 and see if that'll go.
Oh,
Okay.
I think we had one more little announcement from last week before we run out of time. So last week was the CDFA present on the on-farm slaughter, and then also on what's happening in the mammalian composting space, and they have a public workshop coming up. So if anyone's interested in that, I think, Doris, did you have the link that you could plop in the chat? I will, and I think they're only taking admission or through this week, and then they're closing that. It's in September, but they're about full.
Yeah, it is on September 19th, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. in Tulare.
Well, like I said, we just don't want regenerative, and I think Elizabeth, everybody on this call agrees with this, that we don't want it corrupted like the sustainable was.
Yeah,
You know, when big companies are saying they're sustaining their business model.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. Oh, goodness. Okay, looks like my neighbors are arriving. It was great to see you all. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Great.
take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Elizabeth.
Bye, Elizabeth.
Bye.
Yeah, great presentations. Thank you. Thank you
Thanks,
both.
everyone.
Thank you, Carrie.